Good morning, Doug.
Let's get this started. That's what Zoom tells us, right?
It
Is that what
does.
the alert says? Let's get this started. I
Yeah.
like it. What's WAYMO?
Waymo. It is a driverless car. It is a brave new world, Doug.
And you've seen a Waymo?
I jumped in a Waymo and trusted the system. Would you do that?
With the right brand of cigarettes.
I wonder if you can drink in a Waymo.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure they'd throw you out if you're smoking. Like they probably have some sensor in there that locks that thing up and charges your credit card $250 or something.
Were you anxious?
I wasn't, but I texted the video to some people, and most people's responses, they wouldn't do that.
I'd do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd do it, but I think I might feel a little out of control.
Yeah. I was sitting behind where the driver would be, so I couldn't see as much from that place, which is probably good, but it took a left-hand turn at a stoplight, which is kind of an anxious move anyway. Like it didn't wait for the arrow, it went, and I couldn't see what was coming, so I was assuming it had something. So it did that. It took a path that I wouldn't have taken, but Waymo, I think, is owned by Google, who owns Waze. So I assume it was integrating Waze into it. And then it was in a one-way street, was in the left-hand lane, and a pickup truck pulled out in front of it, and rather than moving over a lane, it was 3 lanes on the one way, rather than moving to the middle lane, which was open, it came to a stop, which kind of was a little freaky because that doesn't seem right. But what I thought also, which is a part of this thing, I'm not sure how artificial intelligence is going to work, is after I watched what happened, I thought, well, maybe that pickup truck has done this before. He can just pull out in front of him and make him stop. And so there's some behavioral things that I don't know if AI can figure out for sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
There's a video out there. I saw Waymo turning right, is in New York City. He's turning right, and a pickup truck, I may not have been a pickup truck, some other vehicle, honked at it. And I thought that was funny. To honk at artificial intelligence. Like, is artificial intelligence so good that it knows a honk means like, hey, heads up,
I made a bad decision. Yeah. A friend of mine is a car guy. I was hanging out with him this week, and I told him about it, and he was like, I would never do that, Keith. I would never do it. He evidently has watched videos and stuff, but I guess teenagers in some of these cities where the Waymos are will take a orange cone and sit it on the hood of that, like it may be at a stoplight or something.
of the Waymo.
Yeah, and it thinks the orange cone is right in front of it, and it freaks out parks. And so they have to come and take the orange cone.
Kids.
Yeah. So
okay, one last question about the Waymo. Hi everyone. Thanks for playing along. Cost.
It was 80% more than an Uber.
Okay.
Which I think it would have to be competitive to Uber, but it's the curious factor right now that lets them do that. And I only gave it that 80% was like $6, so I wasn't. And where it was in Phoenix, there's only a subset of Phoenix where the Waymos are running, but they're an odd looking thing if you've never seen them. They're peculiar.
Google it. Google the Google car.
Yeah, and it was a Jaguar.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it's just some funky.
No, it was a Jaguar.
Oh, way to go.
Yeah, so maybe that was worth part of that premium. I don't know.
Yeah, I like Jaguar. That. Yeah, roll up in a Jaguar.
Yeah, I did. I think I told you I rolled up in last time I was in Phoenix, I rolled up in a Mustang GTH, which I didn't know what it was, and my car people helped me understand that was kind of a cool move as well.
Yeah, that's just feel the fun of horsepower.
Yeah, I was afraid of it actually.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, it was worthy of the attention. But so yeah, we moved. Kristen.
That's funny. You're afraid of the horsepower Hearst, but the Waymo, you're like, I'm good.
I guess it says that I trust the computers more than I trust myself.
And I think that's true of a lot of things and reasonable.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we liked the Fidelity operation, was technology. They spend a lot of money on technology, so we knew if we could have good technology and couple that with Keith's wisdom, then we have something really special, right?
Well, I mean, our wisdom. So yeah, and that was part of the decision grid because we knew that they had deeper pockets to get
Yep.
technology than we were before.
And when it goes wrong, that they'll have the deeper pockets to go back and say, hey, why is this going wrong? Let's fix it.
Right. And I think that no matter what your platform is, whatever company and investment advisor aligns with, something will go wrong in technology because stuff goes wrong in technology. And so the fact is that if there's something that happens in your accounts that doesn't look right because of technology, we're your advocates and we go to bat for you on those things.
Yeah.
What do you think? You want to take a look at what's going on in the US markets today?
This is how I've been taking the markets. And do you feel this way ever, that we have a good week, we have a bad week, we have a good week, we have a bad week? And I think we are in something like that right now. One of our good friends, Mark Minervini, likes to call that tennis ball action.
Yeah.
Where you bounce a tennis ball, it goes down and then bounces back up. That's the type of stuff that Keith and I would actually like to see. What does he say? Is it eggs?
Yeah, eggs are the market we saw from November of 21, really all the way to last fall was an egg. If you bought a stock, it's like trying to catch an egg. It just splats on the ground. And really, in the broader market, I don't know that the broader market has really bounced back. Most of the rally we've seen since last fall has happened in a few small, a few names, but there are companies that are starting to look relatively good.
And in those few small names that have bounced back, if you own an index, like if you've got some money in the S&P 500 or a NASDAQ, you own that stuff. I mean, that's basically, what is it, with 25, 20%? Maybe more.
Oh, the FANG stocks and those are, could be 20 to 40% depending on which index you're aligned with.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I'd show a positive thing is the volatility index. This represents the
come on, go put my phone on mute.
This represents the option pricing in the S&P 500 marketplace and how the volatility in those options are picking up or dropping off, which represents the volatility in the S&P stocks. It's not an exact representation, but it gives you a flavor. How volatile is this market? And we've talked for a number of months that if we can get below this 20 level, then that's where the volatility is settled down. That's where the market has a little bit more ability to rally and move its way upward. And so we've dropped below that. We had a spike in volatility on the middle of August here. And ironically, we've talked a number of times how this black line is what's called the 200-day moving average. It takes 200 days of these prices and then kind of averages them out or smooths them out so you can kind of see what the trend is. And it hit that thing and bounced back down. So the volatility has been coming down a bit, and we'd like to see it stay there. And what else do you have to say about that, Doug?
No, I think looks very good, very healthy, and good to see it below the 20 mark. Yeah.
We then also in the last few weeks have had the NASDAQ have a little sell-off, and I'll show you that. It bottomed out on this rally back in August 18th, when the same time that VIX was peaking. This was hitting a trough here. It rallied up, and then just this week has just been kind of dropping off. And today we're having a little bit of a rally over there in the NASDAQ.
Yeah, it got beat up pretty good in August.
It did. So that's about a 10% drop from this high over here down to this low. And it looks like what Minervini says is a volatility contraction pattern, where the volatility, you have a rally, you have a sell-off, you have a little bit of a rally, and hopefully this maybe is another bottom, and maybe it'll rally up. And as we get towards the October time frame, maybe this thing will be moving sideways towards that 14,000.
I'd like to see. I'd like to see it move sideways for a little bit, tighten up on the prices.
And then we can take a quick gander at the S&P, see what's going on with it. And that volatility contraction that I mentioned, put a line pin here where we rallied up, we drop down, we rally up and drop down. And I think what Doug and I are saying, what we'd really like to see is these things just kind of go like this for a while and give us a chance to get some more working in the markets for you.
Yeah.
Well,
What's another friend of ours says, the stock market doesn't have to be exciting. And that's good news. That's good news for me to hear because true confessions, I stopped watching the stock shows in 2003, right around there. And the stock shows, every now and then when I'm on vacation, I'll turn one on and I can't take it.
right.
Because they're designed to ramp up your emotions on buying and selling stocks and ownership. And so those stock shows are the opposite of what we're aiming for, which it just doesn't have to be exciting. It can be logical and it can be unemotional. But boy, the world is against you on this stuff. And so that's one thing that charts help me with, is just to calm down and just see what the market's giving us.
I use Twitter to get some feedback and some input on my thoughts on the world. And one of the Twitter things that shows that it's not somebody I follow, but it has the name of one of those broadcasters, and the Twitter name is opposite that person's name. Like,
it's not Maria, is it?
No.
I think Maria is my favorite.
Yeah,
I think she's pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, the idea is you'll make money if you go the opposite of whatever they're telling you. So
yeah,
so that was a lot of fun.
It's
so
probably not too bad. Yeah.
So I think I mentioned to you the movie I saw on Netflix, not movie, it was a mini series called Live to 100 Secrets of the Blue Zones.
I don't think you.
Oh, I didn't mention it to you.
Yeah.
So
If you did, it was, I wasn't paying attention, and I apologize.
yeah, it forced me a change of thought this week, because I don't want to sound fatalistic, but I just always I've always thought the big dogs don't live long lives, and so I've been living fully with that mindset. And there's an old saying that the days of a man's life are 70 years unless he's strong, and then he gets 80 years. And so what the secrets of the blue zone, these blue zones are places on the planet where the more than above average amount of people are living over 100, like substantially, like a statistical aberration is what it is.
Muncie.
Yeah, the United States didn't do well on this thing. Yeah, this is yeah, the one of the common denominators was poverty. They were impoverished places, so that was like, huh.
Okay.
But my question to you today, Doug, is what if you live to 100? What do you think about the idea of you living to 100?
Well, I don't know that that's a desire of mine. I think it would be a desire if I had health and energy, if I had peace, and if I had some family nearby. Living to 100 would probably be pretty sweet. But I think for me, it's more or less just what am I doing today?
Right.
And
right.
That's kind of where I'm at right now. And that could be because I've had a couple friends die.
Yeah.
But it's more or less what am I doing today, and what type of excellence is out there for me today?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the solution. This fellow that put this thing together, I think he's invested his life in these blue zones and just observing what kind of activities help these people. Because what I've observed of 100 is like, I don't want any part of it, but this series shows these vibrant 100-year-olds. Like, one of the dudes is riding a horse, like on a ranch. He's going out ranching for the day at like 102. And I was like,
he's working. He has purpose, fulfillment.
Exactly.
Risk taking.
Yeah. And so all of this made me think more about the financial planning aspect of things. And so at one of the conversations I was having with some friends yesterday, I said, if you've been thinking about it, what number of years do you suppose you would get? Like, just scribble down what in the back of your mind, what you think you're going to live to. That's why I asked both the husband and wife
Yeah.
to do on that. And then I said, now just scribble that down, because they were Zoom calling, so they weren't together. And so then I said, now that you've scribbled that down, tonight when you go, you can talk about this, but also scribble a second number. And that's the number at which just before that, you're going to not be as healthy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So
What's the year gap, do you think?
oh, I did it for myself, and it was 3 years what I did for myself. I hadn't done that before. And
Yeah.
so I picked 81 and 84 were my numbers.
Okay.
And
I
so
was gonna say 85, but I'm just going off of what Shreve's lifespans have been in the past.
yeah, and previously I thought about tinier lifespans, and I would have gone a lower number. But the point for these clients was they've never really talked about that, and it's not fun talking about those things. But the idea is that if you each pick the number, it's going to tell, like independent, it's going to tell you which one is probably going to have to go solo from
That's
there.
right.
And then it would cause a conversation. What would this look like? Because when we were having this conversation, they both were saying we didn't talk about these things.
Well, I think you and I are a little more comfortable about it, just
Yeah.
because we live it every day.
Right. Yeah. And so the idea was, if you realize that probably one of you is going to have to take care of the other, that creates some other things that you might not think about. And to think about is probably better than just to all of a sudden get immersed with them. And if you do get immersed with them, those are ideas where we're more than comfortable counseling you and giving you direction on those. But what I was really intrigued with and from this show was the Albert Lee, Minnesota.
Okay.
You know anything about Albert Lee, Minnesota?
Nothing.
Albert Lee, Minnesota. The narrator of the show took all the information, all the perspectives he learned, and went to the town leaders of Albert Lee, Minnesota, and said, what if we try to make you guys a blue zone?
There we go. Now we're talking.
And Albert Lee, after a year of incorporating some of the principles, they added 3 years from the research to the lives of everybody. And what stirred me about this whole thing was that by intentionally taking an approach at it, thinking about it intentionally, you can actually increase what it looks like, because that span, like between 81 and 84, could get ugly. But at the same time, by you thinking about these ideas, maybe instead of being 81, 84, it's 84, 87, and you've got 3 more years of living.
Would they bring their family in on it? Like if you knew you had support from the next generation, would they talk about that?
Well, what I felt a little biased watching this thing, because I think the ideas that they're expressing were ideas that we've been telling you all for years. There was one called ikigai, and it means, it's a Japanese concept that combines the term iki, meaning alive or life, and gai, meaning benefit or worth. And so the people in Japan that had this blue zone, they had a purpose every single day when they got up. And so these 90 and 100-year-old people, they got a skip in their step. They're going about things. And then in Costa Rica, they called it plan de vida, which is a plan for your life. It's a purpose for your life. And that, I think, really kind of takes what we do and makes it really valuable to people. Because if you're just accumulating wealth, that has not proven to add value to life.
Yeah. Recently, one of you all asked us what our definition of success is for Gimbal clients and for Gimbal. And I loved that question. I thought that was just a well thought out question. And maybe most advisors would say, well, it's this number. It's the S&P index return or whatever it is. But Keith has thought differently. That's one of his life principles, think differently. And the idea is how well are we using our social, our spiritual, and then our monetary capital? And that's for you to answer.
Yeah,
we don't know, but we want to know.
Yeah, and I think like this conversation is awkward of, you know, what age do you think you're going to live to, and what age do you think your health might start deteriorating prior to that? It's awkward as all get out. But I think you and your significant other have that, it brings an intimacy. Like having difficult conversations brings intimacy into life, I think, and most people avoid those things, and sometimes those things just hit you in the face, and it's a lot easier, I think, if you
A
had
good
some conversation.
question would be, and this is another, I stole this from a analytical friend of mine. He says, he likes to ask me this all the time. What's the desired outcome?
Right,
I hate that question. That
Right.
question makes you think.
right,
But
right,
what is the desired outcome? And so it might mean, I think you've done this, I've done this, you write your own obituary.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's an intentionality, like why am I going to get up today?
Yeah.
And one of the areas that I really thought about as I was pondering this conversation was, unfortunately, there, for most people, there is a span between your finish line and when your health starts to deteriorate, and it can make you grumpy and frustrated. But I think at the same time, if you realize that's just kind of the nature of the thing, that that's going to happen, and today, while you're healthy, happy, and enjoying life, is like, wonder what I could do at that time when I'm not feeling. Isn't there something I could do to bring value to that span of my life? And I think the answer is yes. I think there's a whole bunch of cool things you can do. But a lot of times, having not thought about that, what people tend to do is get grumpy and just older in that period. And it's not an island. It's not like nobody's ever landed there before, right? Like it's a part of life. But the same thing is the idea of community was a big deal in this show. Community added to longevity. A lot of them, in those of us that like the fork, diet was part of it. And the exercise part was really interesting, is that the exercise, they didn't exercise like what we do in the United States. They don't go to the gym. What they do is they just live. They live active lives, and they do things that require them to be active. Gardening is one of those things. And so those basic ideas were a big deal, but the community, I think, is a really huge deal, because I don't know about your observation of people as they get older. A lot of times they lose community.
Yeah, I mean, your friends start dying, or maybe you're not in a workplace where you're meeting with people all the time. And so to go out and have community, you got to push it.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of purpose. The helping others and pouring yourself into others' lives.
For all you grandparents out there, as someone who has kids, I am always delighted when my parents or my wife's parents show up at something, even unannounced. And there's instant community in there because there's a story. Oh, how are you connected? Oh, this is my mom. It's just that type of community is amazing. If you don't have kids, if you don't have family that is nearby, a great way is just go to a coffee shop in the morning. Go drink coffee and do your reading there. You'll meet people. I mean, it's out there. It's for you. This weekend, if you want to walk around near Gimbal World headquarters, we're going to have Artmobilia here, which there's a ton of cool cars and just fun people watching. Great community involvement. There's stuff out there for you.
There's a couple red chairs right outside the window you can sit on if you're looking for something entertaining to do.
What's the name of that again for people?
Live to 100: Secrets of Blue Zones.
So Live to 100.
And I personally, that isn't an aspiration of mine to live to 100.
But you want a full life. That's what you're saying.
What I was compelled to encourage some friends in the last few weeks. I sent them some notes about the idea of compounding in life, and it occurred to me that our children don't really learn about compounding, because the Gimbal piggy banks, that idea of compounding was introduced to me as a kid by putting a penny in a bank, put another penny in a bank, get a nickel, you put a nickel, and then all of a sudden you've got actually some money. Well, that's not something that people see. They actually see the inverse of that today. Yeah. People are learning how to make car payments. They learn to get a cell phone payment. Yeah. They try to get them negative compounding in life. But what I was encouraging some friends with, if you took 5 minutes a day and just did something intentionally with 5 minutes, and then you did that every day for a year, you've really accomplished something. Like if you want to learn German or Spanish, and you just spent 5 minutes a day doing it, you're going to be pretty far down the road in 12 months. And so the idea of what will my particular blue zone, how will I affect change that those final years maybe will look better than I originally thought. There's some small changes you can do today at 5 or 10 minutes a day that'll make a big difference.
I love that they do that in Minnesota.
I don't recall.
Or is that?
I have to admit, it was 4 parts, and I'm not a very good TV watcher. And so the first one, I kind of got the gist of it. The next thing I knew, I was like, so I didn't get all the details for
That
y'all.
just gives me hope because, like, you could say Costa Rica, and I go, yeah,
Yeah,
who wouldn't love that? But like when it's February in Indiana, if you did 5 minutes of something indoors in Indiana,
right.
the compounding effect of that could be huge.
Yeah, one of the things I do pretty consistently is drop people a note, and most notes take 5 to 10 minutes at the most. Now, I don't do it every day, but what happened is why I was writing to people to encourage them with that is I found Connie's cache of notes that I've sent her over the years, and I like my heart palpitated thinking if I was going to write it all at once, like, yeah, because it would have been overwhelming to do that at once, but it was just gradually like that. And another kind of input I was getting into my world in the last couple weeks was how to be more successful in marriage. And one of the guys was talking about something as simple as a note really increases the livelihood of your marriage. And so I'm not boasting on myself. I'm just saying I didn't even know that, but it definitely has had a compounding effect on our friendship.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So you guys you're doing great accumulating wealth, you're saving money, you're investing in people, but I just encourage you to live life to the fullest and make those minor changes that might make a big deal for the next 30 years or so.
Go out, take a risk with something that's been maybe eating away at you, or something that's been quietly getting you excited over time. Take a risk and do it.
Yeah, I didn't get to join you guys last week because I was celebrating the life of a friend, but his dad took a risk with their friendship the week before and got something just really loving and kind off his heart to his son 24 hours before he passed, and it was a real blessing to hear that. And so it's worth taking the risk, whatever you're going to risk. Well, you guys live life to the fullest. We'll see you soon.